Hi, I'm Sean, and welcome to the Love to Own Your Business podcast. Here, we learn how to grow businesses we love to own. Each month, we share great advice on how to do that, and also on how to avoid the pitfalls that make us love our business not so much. So, earlier this month, I was remembering a statement that today's guest made while we were filming a prior podcast. He said, "If you love your business, it's your baby. And like a real human baby, it reflects back at you all of your worst traits and all of the things that you're not doing right." At the time, that was doubly funny to me because I had just seen a cartoon that said, "It's really, really tough to discipline the you out of your kids." We translated that into, "It's really, really tough to discipline the you out of your business." I was going to write a blog post about this, but then Chris and I had a follow up discussion and we decided to do a podcast about this. So we're going to talk about how anxiety affects entrepreneurs and the effects of that anxiety on our businesses. So let's welcome back Chris Edwards, owner of Neurotherapy of Colorado Springs, who is extraordinary at helping people overcome all manner of anxieties. So hi, Chris. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. So question number one. Uh, Anxiety in general is really not considered to be an ownerly kind of thing. Although of late that it does seem to be being discussed more, it's still really far from being normalized. But as you know, there are as many reasons for anxieties as there are for becoming an entrepreneur. So let's begin by talking about how the ways we become an entrepreneur can lead to certain types of anxieties or vice versa, and also how that sort of winds up in reflecting in our business.
Right. Okay. Good. So, when you and I were talking about this, and building the idea for this particular podcast, I was thinking a lot about myself, and I'm probably one of those therapists that does a little more self-disclosure to clients than others do. And one of the things that I was really running into in my business was that I had this vision of what I wanted it to be and what I wanted to do. And I wasn't getting there. I wasn't able to grow. In fact, people had come to train here and learn the way that I do things, and I teach that. And they were off having businesses that were 10 times, financially more successful than mine. So I had people growing way beyond me very, very quickly. So I go, okay, my methodologies are right. I'm doing something right here, but I'm not doing something right. I'm not growing my business. What's my problem? So I had to do a fair amount of self-reflection on this. And it really came down to I had an anxiety about money and failing, and making a move and always wanting that move to be fiscally covered somehow. So if it fell down, I don't fail. And of course, you, business advisor, understands that's impossible, right?
Right.
Can't do that. The business have risks implicitly built into them. And the reality is the stories that I was telling myself about how everything was going to go wrong and trying to troubleshoot all the different ways ahead of time that it could go wrong caused me to move into analysis paralysis and really just not get anywhere, which is what anxiety is. At least one major type of anxiety is the stories you tell yourself about how things are going to go wrong, even though they rarely ever do. And so now we're getting into that very surface brain kind of anxiety, which is stories that you've made up, things that you've rehearsed over time, things that you've learned that you are now bringing into your business and you don't even know you're doing it. And the reason you don't know you're doing it is really simple. 5% of your brain goes to the thing in front of you. 5% of your brain's energy is going to the thing in front of you and presents as the illusion of what this life is about. 95% of your brain's running on autopilot.
Yeah.
Autopilot is born out of repetition. Repetition lives in your past. So the reality is a lot of what you're doing on a daily basis is what you've been doing for a really long time and you're not even thinking about it. That includes emotional states and anxiety.
Interesting. Very interesting. Um, how does that sort of manifest itself in your business? Like transfer. Let's talk about transference.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Right. What I didn't learn about money as a kid.
Yeah.
My dad had a fear of it, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
My dad kind of had this sort of doomy, gloomy, it could all fall apart at any minute kind of mentality. And I think he was really just one of those guys that, stuff your money under a mattress and pray the house doesn't burn down, right?
Yep.
And so I didn't have any fiscal lessons. In fact, when I went to college, I didn't have a savings account. I didn't have a checking account. I didn't have a credit card. I literally went to college with $1,500 of cash in my trunk that I had earned. And
Yeah.
that's all I knew. My dad's only lesson to me, fiscal lesson, was get a credit card and don't ever use it.
How do you think that affected the way that you manage your people around money in your business now?
Well, where it really started was not wanting to hire, right? Because you've got to pay them, right?
Yep.
And what if I don't have enough business? And what if business runs shy? And what if we run lean? And what does that mean? And then, beyond that, what is it about having a non-revenue generating staff member too, right? So if I hire a therapist, they're generating revenue. That's one thing. I got to get them covered and I got to make sure they have business. What if I have an office manager? What if I have somebody who's not directly generating revenue? Whoa, now I got to cover that hurdle, right? That's a whole other mindset. And my mindset was to take these little baby steps and make sure that every little baby step forward that I was making was somehow covered, just
Yep.
covering my bets all the time. And it just got to the place where I was crawling instead of,
Yep.
moving through my business. Wasn't making the progress. And so here I am, just me doing all jobs, which prevents me from doing the thing that I'm really, really good at, which is being a neurotherapist.
Yeah, it's also causing more anxiety because now you're snowballing because of stress of because of stress of workload, overwhelmedness, right? So that sounds like a compounding anxiety to me.
Bingo. That's
Yep.
exactly it. So what I'm doing is I've got this autopilot in my brain that I've got from my dad from way back when that I don't even know I'm bringing it into my business. I
Yeah.
just am. In my mind, I go, this is the way things are done.
Yep.
This is how you do it.
Yeah.
Right. And it didn't occur to me to examine self. And then I would hire like a small, business advisor here and there and get some advice and go, that doesn't fit my template. So
Yeah.
you must be wrong.
That's right.
And pretty soon everybody's wrong and I'm the only one who's right
Yeah.
and I'm not moving anywhere. So the common denominator is me and I'm the problem. And so I have to I really had to really come to terms with myself of owning that,
Yeah.
right? That I'm the problem. And so I really had to go, I went and did some therapy of my own to really get at my anxiety and where is that coming from?
Yeah. I think that in my world, we come across all different levels of anxieties for various different reasons, right? Sometimes it's because there's real threats to the business. Sometimes it's fixing that reflection of those anxieties as it's manifested in the business and the culture, right?
Right.
So sometimes, but I know about myself, like I like a little bit of anxiety because I'm performance based, right? So I'm good on deadlines. I like to have a little bit of a push and fire because I need some immediacy to start certain neurons firing, right? Other neurons take over when I'm not stressed, right? And then when I'm stressed, all of a sudden I get this whole burst of, I think, right? If I'm going to call it neuroscience, I get this burst of all neuron activity going, wow, and I can solve all kinds of problems that I really
Right.
not focusing on, right? It's a focus issue, right? But
Right.
let's talk about what is a healthy level of anxiety and
Right.
something like not self-sabotage level of anxiety, right?
Right. Okay. So, healthy level of anxiety, the big umbrella that we're going to put all anxiety under. So, anxiety, one of them is going to be caution, right?
Yep.
The right amount of caution. And here, the example I use a lot is, let's go to hunter-gatherer days, right?
Mm,
And our little hunter-gatherer troop is running out of food. So three of them head out, and they're looking for new food. And they come across a new berry bush. And first hunter gatherer goes, never seen it, don't know that berry, not touching it, never going to do. That guy doesn't live very long to pass on his DNA, right?
Yeah.
You got not hunter gatherer number two is like, I'm hungry, gobble it up. And that guy doesn't have enough caution, enough anxiety, and he's not going to live to pass on his DNA. It's the third guy that comes along and he goes, well, it's red, and I know red berries, and it's sweet. I know sweet berries; those are good. And what I could do is just eat one and chew it, see what happens, and then I could run it past everybody else at the back at the clan here, and we can deliberate. There you go. Now there's healthy caution, right? There's healthy anxiety.
Mitigated
It,
risk.
yeah, yeah. It's take you gotta take some risks. You gotta know when to take some risks. And unhealthy anxiety is what prevents you from taking healthy risks,
Yep.
which is which is what a business is all about.
Let's talk about the different kinds of anxieties. Let's talk about
Okay.
where they come from. Let's talk about, because when we started off this question with, I might have become an entrepreneur because I had to or because I wanted to. Those are going to be two entirely different sets of anxieties, right?
Yeah.
So if I had to because I lost my job and I've got nothing else to do, and I can't find another job, and I'm going to just start my own business. You're starting off with a certain level of anxieties, and then you're compounding those, and they're building upon each other, and you get this snowball effect. You get this anxiety ball. Let's call it a bucket of anxieties, right?
Right.
So you have one kind of bucket of anxieties for the person that had to start their business, right?
Right.
And then you might have another set of anxieties for somebody who already planned well. I want to start my business. I think I can do a good job. I've got all these different ideas that they have to get pulled out of me, or I have to pour them out into the world. And
Right.
then you have all these other sets of anxieties that might have started later in the person that has to start their business, right? They'll eventually get to those, right? But
Right.
but
True.
but the
Yeah.
one that the second level of bucket is a whole different set of anxieties. Each of those,
Right.
though, get reflected in how we manage our people or manage ourselves, how we interact with our families, and how that anxiety gets compounded back to us and the anxieties of our business, and so on and so forth, right? So
Right.
please talk about that.
Okay. So two main kinds of anxiety. You got two main parts of your brain that run anxiety. You've got the amygdala, core brain. It's in charge of fight or flight,
Yep.
right? And then you've got your surface brain. It's what we live out of every day. It's what makes humans humans, and it's where we have our logic and reasoning and all that good stuff. Now, here's the problem. The amygdala, which is in charge of fight or flight, okay, in charge of those very anxious moments. And it's also in charge of holding on to powerful emotional memories and experiences.
Yep.
That's its job, right? When it goes off, man, when it fires, we have a problem because it derails. It's designed to turn off the surface brain,
Mm.
which of course is what you need to run your business.
Yep.
Right. So if you have some real heavy duty anxiety, you've got old trauma, maybe you have a former failed business. I've seen that in here. I've had people come in and work on anxiety in here who owned a business, it failed. And their next business, solid business idea. But the reason it's failing is because they can't let go of the trauma of losing the former business. Right. And that every time that amygdala gets triggered, the fight or flight gets triggered, they no longer make good decisions.
Yep.
Why? Because the frontal lobe just was disengaged in that moment. And either they make really poor impulsive decisions or they don't make any decision at all. And, in business, if you don't make a decision, it will be made for you at some point. Right?
That's
So
right.
that's the problem. So amygdala is a big one. And then the problem with the amygdala, here's the bigger part of the problem, is that because the frontal lobe and the amygdala don't talk to each other, then you can't reason with the amygdala.
Mm.
You don't talk to the amygdala. You don't go to talk therapy to deal with that kind of anxiety. That's different. And for sure, some people, I think too, like you were saying, I have to have a business. There's survival built into it.
Yeah.
man, let's be honest, we're all survival oriented. Prime directive number one is live another day.
That's right.
And so when our business is being governed by that principle, it feels like you're really not allowed to get into that higher order thinking stuff, right? The stuff that makes business fun,
Yeah.
right? It's all about survival. And when it's all about survival, then you aren't making growth decisions because survival's not about growth.
Yeah, we're talking about bottom of the Maslow again, right?
Bingo. Bingo. Now, the other one to think about too is it's not always all trauma, amygdala based, heavy duty experience stuff. The other way this can come in is that you can have certain areas of your surface brain that get really good at making up stories.
Yeah.
If I do this, then this could happen, or that could happen, or this could happen, or that could happen.
Oh, I'm
And we
really
get
good at
into,
that.
right, I know. Here's the problem. Intermittent reinforcement, once in a while, you're going to be right too, right? I've got this thing in front of me and I'm going to make up 10,000 ways it can go wrong. So I am sure to catch every single way it could go wrong. And then you were right about one of those 10,000 ways and your brain goes, see, we did it. And now you're reinforced for hanging on to that behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. But what you're not thinking about is how much energy did you spend on the 99,999 other ways that
Yeah.
it didn't go wrong, and you spent countless amounts of energy worrying about, and is that energy you could have redirected back into your business? And the
Yeah.
answer, of course, is yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I'll tell you one thing. My brain justifies that, and I know this, right? But I justify this by going, yeah, but I really want to be prepared for that one time.
Yes, that's just it. And
I'm
like
gonna
I
be prepared.
once in a while, you're going to nail it.
Yeah.
Smart people are going to nail it. So it's that fine line of what's caution and problem solving, and then where does it go over the edge and impair your ability to make good decisions
Yeah.
and take healthy risks.
Yeah. Help link that for people so that they, when they're walking around their business and they're like they're wondering why they said something that they probably shouldn't have said to one of their employees or one of their peers or maybe even one of their family members. Can you? I know it's kind of on the spot, but can you link maybe one type of anxiety to an outward statement or behavior or reaction or something that somebody might manifest in a behavior?
One of my favorites is to go back to this autopilot is the knee-jerk reaction. So maybe I'm not talking about a very specific thing, but it's that response that shot out of your mouth that was a no in some way faster than it should have been because it's clear you did not deliberate,
Yes,
right?
that's a good point.
That's anxiety. That knee-jerk reaction is part of that 95% autopilot. You didn't even have to think about the no or the negative response or the whatever. It shot out so fast. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's that anxious driven autopilot, right? And
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
You really have to, so you and I have some commingling friends long ago in a galaxy far, far away. But one of our friends, Penny, was really good about throwing out little bits and blurbs of wisdom, right? And one of the things that she gave me, because I was having this problem in my life of either saying no to everything or yes to everything, just freezing and just going, oh, okay, or no. And she said, you need a phrase in your back pocket that buys you the time to deliberate. So we rehearsed over and over again over a long weekend. Let me get back to you on that. Okay. So now I got this canned phrase in my back pocket that offsets my 95% autopilot that wants me to make an anxious driven and anxiety driven decision right then, right there.
Yep.
I go, let me get back to you on that. And now I've got some time to examine self and go, well, I want to say no. Why do I want to say no? Or I'm going to say yes, even though that doesn't feel like a good idea either, because I want to people please or whatever that is. Which is its own kind of anxiety of not wanting to hurt anybody's feelings. And having that time built into the way that you respond to people that allows you deliberation.
Yep.
And is that thing you're saying, does it align with your business goals? Does it align with the kind of boss that you want to be? Does it align with the kind of business you want to run?
Yeah. A sort of a side note on that is that the let me get back to, or let's circle back on that, right?
Right.
I often think about jargon and usefulness, not usefulness. Do you use jargon? Do you not use? But jargon takes a big hit in the real world. Often about people saying, "Well, you shouldn't use jargon," or jargon, you've jargoned me, or I've heard this as a panned phrase. But building certain jargon into our business life gives us the room to give us proper answers, or give us the proper pathway to make sure that we're not making incongruent decisions or hasty decisions or whatever the case might be. So I think this one goes to the plus side for a jargon phrase.
Right. What I'll do is I'll whip out a let me get back to you on that. And what I'll do is I'll name, why am I pulling out my jargon, right? And I go, look, I want some time to deliberate because, and I'll just be honest, and I go, look, I'm human, right? I got my stuff. And what I don't want to do is give you a knee-jerk reaction that shuts this down. And I don't want to say yes to something that later on I'm going to have to circle back around and go, no, that was a bad idea. So what I really want to do is deliberate. I want to go settle into this idea that you have and use my frontal lobe to make that decision. And I want to give this what it deserves, So I'll literally name that to an employee and go, I really want to think about this, and here's why.
That's fantastic. What are some things that a person, if they're going to do some, let's, for all the self-starting and entrepreneurs here, if they
Yeah.
wanted to go out and go find themselves a therapist, or maybe if they want to think of it differently, as an anxiety coach or something, what are some really good things that they should be looking for in that therapist or anxiety coach, or however they want to phrase it to make themselves comfortable about it?
Okay. So my favorite really is understanding that what we now know about anxiety has evolved a ton
Mm,
as our understanding of the brain has evolved, right? So
mhm,
understanding what's amygdala based anxiety versus what's cortical based anxiety. So the fight or flight based anxiety versus surface brain anxiety. So you need a therapist that understands the difference between those two things, because you don't do talk work with fight or flight brain. That's not how it works. We
yes.
do what's called somatic therapy, right? Because your amygdala talks to your body, right? That's why your heart beats and you get sweaty and your blood pressure goes up. So you have to use your body to talk back to your amygdala. So you need a therapist that has that toolbox. All right. So when you're interviewing a therapist, is, what do you recommend for somebody who has panic attacks, and what do you recommend for somebody who freezes, and what do you recommend? This is all that fight or flight based anxiety. And then when we come over to surface brain anxiety, okay, the stories that we tell and the
Mm,
endless problem solving sessions, or God forbid, you're one of those artistic, creative people that can actually see things, going wrong in your head. The fire engine drives by and you go, did I leave the stove on? And can you picture your kitchen catching on fire, right? That's all surface brain stuff.
yeah.
So do they have the tools in their toolbox to help you discern between the different types, number one? And
Mm,
then what do they recommend for those things, right?
yeah.
What do they recommend for those different things? And just getting a sense of, are you in this realm of the evolved way that we're looking at anxiety,
Mhm,
right?
yep.
Then some of it's coaching. Some of it is, real tool based kind of work that you do. And, some of it is processing, because let's be honest, right? If 95% is autopilot, then a lot of what you're bringing into your business lives in your past, and you need to go back and do a little processing about what's coming up.
Yeah.
And have you ever really owned what's back there? And do you even have a good understanding of what that is? One of the things that I really did learn and realize in therapy, that I had a fair amount running in the background for a long time that I
Yeah.
didn't even realize was shaping my behavior. It
Yeah.
was very humbling.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too, is be prepared to dig deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so a therapist that you can connect with too, it's just one of those things you sitting in a room and you go, I like this person, or I don't really like this person.
Connection.
Yeah, connection.
It's not just something that we should be doing. It's our responsibilities, just like it is as it is to be fiscally responsible for our business. We have to be culturally responsible for our business. And if our anxieties or our foibles or whatever the case might be that we're carrying around either consciously or subconsciously, it's our responsibility as business owners to go find a way to go solve for those anxieties, or at least find ways to mitigate them, or find tools to mask them from the rest of our culture or the rest of our employees, right? Just like as we would be to mask it from our children.
Right. I mean, that's just it, right? You've got people that are looking to
Yeah.
you for guidance. You've got
Yeah.
people to you that are feeding their families based on your
Yeah.
business. I really do believe it's your duty to get in there and dig deep. And then I go, this is what's cool about it, because then you get to be a better person overall.
Yeah.
Not only do you have a better business, but you just have a better, less anxious life. You have a better quality of a spousal relationship, a relationship with your children. And then all of a sudden you're running that cool business you always wished you had, because you're waking up on a Monday and going, I get to go to work today,
Yeah.
instead of going, oh, I got to go to work today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Right.
why.
And I think anxiety, honestly, is a lot of why we say that.
Yeah. Yeah. As we say here on this side of the screen, we want you to love your business.
Right. Right. And anxiety, what we don't really own is when we don't love our business. I think it's interesting as you start to pick that apart with somebody. What is it you don't love about it? And if you
Yeah.
really boil it down, I think anxiety is often at the bottom.
Yeah. I often think about that, and I was like, how much of the previous, like, into getting into this iteration of our lives, how much was anxiety driven versus,
Yeah.
joy driven, right?
Okay. So when you were talking about that pressure,
Yep.
what that pressure does is it does generate dopamine in the brain. So for those of us who might run a little bit low on dopamine from time to time, which I do, that pressure gives us a little bit of a boost, right?
Mm.
The problem is when we lean on that pressure and that dopamine too often, what we find ourselves doing is basically using anxiety to drive us to get things done, which is a formula for burnout. One of the other things, back to your therapy question, because I really wanted to make sure we mention it, is imposter syndrome.
Yes. Let's talk about that for a second. That's interesting.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome, this was me, is that I'm good at what I do. I keep hearing that I'm good at what I do. I've got business coming in. I got more than I can handle. Yet in my head continues to live this idea and belief that I'm not that I'm not that good, that this could fall apart at any moment, that I'm not as good as I think I am. And on and on and on and on and on. And this is a very specific type of anxiety that is born usually in childhood,
Mm.
depending on how we were raised and the kind of parents we were raised by.
Interesting. That's interesting. We hear a lot about this. It's the fake it till you make it thing. There's all kinds of isms that go around on this specific topic, but yeah, I agree. I run into that a lot. People who are really, really, really good at what they do, and people say it's false modesty or whatever the case might be, but it's quite common. It's a big word, but a simulacra, right? Of something that never really existed, but we've now tried to aim for that, right? So it's like for a photoshopped picture of a model, right? Women are trying to address something that was never really ever existed in reality, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Unrealistic expectations, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in research, we call it operational definition, right? It's your definition of what a manager is. It's
Mm,
your definition of what a business owner is. And what one of the messages I got growing up is my dad was, don't own a business. You don't want to own a business. It gets so complicated, it's so I just grew up with this thing of like, we don't own businesses. And to this day, if we talk business, you can hear the anxiety in my dad's voice. His questions to me are always like, well, how's business? Do you have enough business coming in? How's competition out there? Do you have a lot of people?
it's exhausting.
Yeah. And I get off those conversations now, having done my work and going, okay, yeah, now I remember where I got this from.
Let me get back to you.
Yeah. Touche. Yeah, let me get back to you
Let
on
me get
that,
back to you,
right?
Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
I want you to close this out with a set of tools and things, but before I get there, is there a name for the different kind of therapy disciplines or something? So like the one that you said is good on this side, or one that's good on this side. You can talk about what you do, like what is good for feedback, neurofeedback versus
Right,
talk
sure.
therapy, or give somebody some, because there's so many different kinds of therapists out there. Right?
There is. Okay. Look for somebody that specializes in anxiety, because if they specialize in anxiety, they should be familiar with all the different forms.
Is
Number
that a
one.
counselor? Is that a
Yeah.
word? Is that defined as counselor, therapist? What are the other terms?
I'm going to go with therapist, and the reason I'm going to say don't go to a life coach, and this is not a diss to the life coaches of the world, but somebody put this to me really well recently, and I liked it. The difference between a life coach and a therapist is the life coach is going to help you figure out what to do different moving forward. And a therapist is
Mm,
going to help you figure out what's going on now and maybe how you got there. We're going to look at
likewise.
pathology from the past,
Yeah.
right? And I think a good anxiety therapist actually has to be both a good coach and a good therapist.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's what we define what the difference between a CFO is, and right, forward looking, or right, bookkeeping looking
Right.
backwards, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think too, you know, to lean into you a little bit is the guy that you are in the business that you have is I think a great place to start is with somebody like you, right? You and I have talked many times. I've come to you with some of my dilemmas, and it's and what I walk away with sometimes is I go, wow, Sean just dispelled a lot of my baloney stories in about 5 minutes. It's like, it's just having a good advisor on board
Mm,
when you have questions, so that you're not spinning your concerns and questions into a tizzy. If that's who you
mm,
are normally, then have somebody like a Sean Lewis on board that you can, send a note to, get a conversation with, and go, I'm freaking out about this thing. And you come on board and go, you don't need to. It's simple. It's this, it's this, it's this. Right? Why spend our time spinning ourselves into an anxious place
mm,
when you don't need to?
yeah.
And one of the things that I honestly think is important to think about if you own a business is I really believe having somebody like you in their back pocket is absolutely essential. That doesn't mean you need to go to them for every darn thing. It's just having that in your back pocket sometimes allows you to take more risks, healthy risks, because you just know you've got somebody there. If it feels like it's going over the edge a bit, I'm going to call Sean, and Sean may go, dude, this isn't about small business. This is other stuff. You want to
Mm.
call Chris, and you need to lean into this a little bit, right?
All right, for the self starters, give us some tools that they could start isolating these anxieties, and let's start
Okay.
separating which belongs in which bucket: the Sean Lewis bucket or the Chris Edwards bucket.
Right. So I think if you're noticing anxiety, right? If you're noticing anxiety, you're going to show up in the Chris camp when you get to the place where I was, where you're looking around you and going, I should be further along and I'm not, and I don't understand it. That's a me bucket, I think,
Mm,
to some
okay.
extent. If you're noticing physical reactions to things, if you're having panic attacks and you're sweating and you're breaking down and you're going home and it's having an impact on your marriage and relationships and kids and things like that, then yes, that's a me thing. If you're not sure where to go, if you're having some cautionary issues, if part of your anxiety is I don't know what I don't know, I think a Sean Lewis is a great place to start. Of just I don't know about getting the right, unemployment information, or what's this tax thing all about, and what are the posters that I got to have in my break room, and this. Sean, you don't need to sit around to be anxious about stuff like that. There are people out there that can help you with those things, and this is the Google age, man.
Yeah,
Google it.
that's true.
Better still, get a person to talk to.
Yeah.
Somebody who's already done all the Googling, it'll save you a ton of time, right? Because then you're just going to get anxious about the two different opposite Google answers you got about the same question. Oh, I could do it this way. Great. Oh, but this guy says don't do it that way. That's why you want a human being to talk to.
Yep.
Okay. The other one that I think too is there's a really great book called Rewire Your Anxious Brain. And I love and hate the people who wrote this book. It's Catherine Pittman and Elizabeth Carl. And the reason that the reason I hate them is because they wrote the book I wish I had written it, and they wrote it better than I ever would have too. It's just genius. I've given a copy to all of my therapists. I believe every single therapist in the country should have a copy of this book, because you are not a therapist that never deals with anxiety. It's impossible. It's a part of why everybody walks in your door. And I think that's a great tool, because they do a really great job of giving brilliant little checklists and things like that to help you figure out where you are, what kind you have, and where is it coming from. And if you're reading through that, and you're really grokking with what they're saying, then, get a therapist. And if you're reading that, go, no, this isn't really what I'm at. Mine's more kind of business related and questions that I have, and it's the great unknown. And again, like I said, it's what I don't know about what I don't know that causes me anxiety. Then get somebody who knows. That's a Sean Lewis.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment.
That's where, and then I think from there to just simple stuff: get sleep, eat right, avoid maladaptive coping mechanisms like drinking every night and staying up late and not taking breaks and things like this.
Shed your toxic relationships.
You got it. You got to do it. You got to do it. You just do. And learning how to put those healthy boundaries up with your business. And then there's just a point in time where I go, I got to have a break. And it's time for my daughter, who I think I heard knocking on the door just a minute ago, that kind of thing. Then I go, okay, it's time to wrap it up and go be that guy for a while. And getting better at putting those boundaries up and practicing them, you'll be able to bring that into your business and practice it there as well with employees and workload and all these other things, right? Yep. It's all one big thing anyways. If you love your business, it's all one big thing anyways. And if you love your business, and let's pretend you have kids, don't you want to teach your kids how to love what they do?
Yeah. Right? You want to let them come up and be anxious business owners too.
Right. So show them the way that you do it. See, now here, hang on a second. Come in. Hang on. Now watch. See, I'll show you. Come here. See, so this is what I'm talking about is I've got my beautiful daughter here who's at work with me, who's politely trying to say, Daddy, I'd like to go home and go swimming now. Right?
I want to go home.
Well, this is a great transition. Then we can let your dad go be dad guy now. Right? Let's help close this out then. Thank you very much, Chris.
Yes, you're so welcome.
Yep. And I will close this out. Let's Neurotherapy. Give us your website.
Yes, Neurotherapy of CS. It's Colorado Springs. So neurotherapyofcs.com.
Thank you. And if you want to know more about what we do here at SLC Advisory Group, you can find us at www.slcadvisorygroup.com. And if you want to see Chris's other video with us, I'll have a card either here or here. And of course, if you want to make sure that you don't miss any of our content, hit the subscribe button when you do, and we'll let you know when our next episode comes out. And we'll see you again next month. And thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Sean. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.